We found an apartment! And it's in Oregon. So last summer, we visited the Oregon coast. We fell in love. We knew that week that we were there, we just had to live there. And now we're making it happen. Except we did decide for healthcare reasons, or access to healthcare, and for access to jobs, that we won't actually be on the coast, we'll be more in the Portland area. So in this video, we're going to talk about a trip that we recently took up to Portland for about a week, where we looked at a bunch of neighborhoods and a bunch of apartments that I had been researching for about a year. And we went to see everything in person, and we found where we're going to live. So we're going to tell you all about it.
And we're excited. We really are.
You don't sound excited, but we actually are.
This is me being excited.
So if you already know us and you're just watching because you're interested in our journey and our move, or if you're here because you're interested in learning about moving to Oregon and some of the apartments and neighborhoods there, this video is for you. Stay tuned. Hi YouTube, Autumn Beckman here. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. My channel is all about luxury living on a budget, from high-end luxury handbags and small goods to the everyday luxuries of life. If that sounds interesting to you, please make sure you subscribe, click the bell notification icon to be notified when I post new videos, and be sure to like the videos that you like the videos that you enjoy. That's correct. And one of the perks of subscribing is you get to see my community posts on your YouTube homepage, where I post deals, discount codes, sales, and rare finds related to these beautiful things we love.
I'm Paul, and I'm her husband.
So let's get into this. Just a little overview of what we'll talk about in this video. We have been looking to move to Oregon for about a year now. We took this last year to plan the move. I've done a lot of research into neighborhoods and apartments, and we narrowed it down. I made a spreadsheet because I'm a spreadsheet person. So I had the spreadsheet divided by neighborhood and then apartments within those neighborhoods that we wanted to see. We looked at Hayden Island, we looked in Tigard, we looked in West Linn, Lake Oswego, and Hillsboro, specifically Orenco Station. So that's what we'll be talking about today. Let's start by telling them what we were looking for in an apartment, our must-haves, and then things that are extras that we'd really, really like to have,
Sure,
but maybe aren't deal breakers. So must-haves, do you want to read those?
Our must-haves list is pretty short, but they're important. We were looking, first of all, for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment. We were looking for around 1,000 square feet or more, if possible.
The apartment we're in now is really big compared to most apartments. It's a 1,500 square foot apartment. It's also 2-bedroom, 2-bath. We have a lot of space here.
We have closets here that you could live in. It needed to be pet friendly, so if you know us, it has to be pet friendly.
Yeah, we have 2 dogs and a bird.
Yes. And of course, in our budget, we were looking for something preferably under $2,500 a month.
Yeah, currently we pay $2,200-ish.
Yes.
So considering that I'm switching careers, I just left teaching. I don't quite know what I'm going to be doing next. We were looking to get something comparable to what we're paying now.
And an important thing for Autumn there would be a short commute to downtown.
Living in Houston, commuting that's where we live now currently, by the way. Commuting is very common. It's something I've done before, where I have spent an hour and a half to 2 hours commuting one way. And I have vowed a long time ago to never do anything like that again. It is just soul-sucking. The last few years since we've been together, I've lived pretty close to where I've worked. And since we've been in this apartment, I'm only 10 minutes from the job that I had. So it's important to be, and in Portland, I don't know where I'm going to be working, but I assume most likely it would be in the downtown area. That seems to be where most of the jobs are that are the kinds of jobs I'm looking for. So we were looking for something not too far from downtown.
One of the things so different between Portland and Houston is the bridges.
Yeah, and the thing with the bridges is the traffic will back up getting onto the bridge. Most of the jobs that I've seen that I've been interested in have been on the west side of the river, so we did limit our search for the most part to neighborhoods on the west side to avoid having to cross any bridges. We would also love to have in an apartment
A balcony, walk-in closets, a newer modern mid to high-rise building with a parking garage with an indoor walk to the apartment, and an elevator. That's not asking much, is it?
Well, in Houston, it's not asking much at all. That's what we have now, and we need an elevator because just going up and down, it's too much to do stairs and dogs and all that. We do that multiple times a day. We've got to be in an elevator or potentially on the ground floor. We're on the 4th floor where we are now. We have an elevator and our building has multiple elevators. So that's come in handy. And then the parking garage is not only to protect our cars from the elements, keeping it safe, but also so that we don't have to walk in the weather, because if it's raining, in Portland it's going to be raining a lot.
So I hear.
And it'll be a lot colder there, so we don't want to have to expose ourselves to the elements too much. In researching apartments and looking for those things and apartments that check those boxes, there are a few things that we found. One was that we expected that we were going to have to pay more money than we're currently paying for less than we currently have. Less square footage, smaller closets, not even walk-ins, just like open the door and there it is. Smaller rooms, just everything smaller. That was disappointing, but it was something we went up there prepared for. We also found that walk-in closets are very hard to find in the floor plans unless you're more out in the suburbs where they have newer construction. So they're building the walk-ins, but closer in where the shorter commutes are, it's hard to find those. And we also found that the apartment buildings themselves are a lot older than we were expecting. Being in Houston, we are used to these new things, new apartment buildings popping up all over the place. Since we've been in this building for about 4 years?
5 now.
5 years? I'm trying to think how many buildings have popped up around us.
Oh.
Quite a few, maybe 5-ish, just in those few years. So, and they're all nice, high-rise. They check all the boxes that I just listed.
The thing in Houston is that if something is older than 20 years, they tear it down and build something new.
Yeah,
so that's why all the apartments in Houston are new.
The apartments that I was finding in the Portland area that are more central, that are the older buildings, when you see something like that in Houston, it's generally not a place you want to live. It tends to be maybe higher crime is one of the things you're concerned about, and not as well taken care of.
And they're located next to old business districts and things like that, where, train tracks and it just, different locations. Houston is not zoned. That's another thing about Houston. So everything is crazy. You'll find businesses next to residential areas. It's insane.
Yeah. So they're not in the nicest neighborhoods usually, and the neighborhoods that we're interested in that are nicer, you don't find those kinds of buildings. You find places that are more like what we're in, or even more luxury. So let's start talking about the places that we actually visited.
Okay.
The first one, this was straight from the airport. We left the airport, we still had our luggage in the car, and we went straight here because it was close to the airport. It was called Yacht Harbor Club on Hayden Island. And I filmed some footage there. I had planned to vlog that whole week that we were there, but that just did not work out. It wasn't practical to be able to do that, especially touring apartments when you have the leasing agent there with you. It's too much to ask them to not only let you see the apartment, but then wait for you to go back and film everything and ask them to stand out of the way and keep moving while you're turning the camera. It'd be rude. I can insert some of the footage to show you, but I won't put the sound in. This place we loved. It was so wonderful. It was probably my favorite place of all the places that we looked at. They had just about everything we were looking for.
This place clicked every box and more.
Yeah, and more. It had things we didn't know we could get up there. So it had it's a modern building, beautiful, spacious apartments, giant walk-in closets. The hallways were all interior. There was a lot of the older buildings, they're exterior with exterior stairwells. This place was so nice. It was carpeted inside, and they had elevators, and they had parking garages.
Kind of reminded me of a luxury hotel.
Yeah, it did. It was pretty nice. They also had a nice restaurant downstairs. But the great thing about this is it's on an island, so it was on the water. It was on the Columbia River, and the balconies look out onto this harbor with boats, and it was beautiful.
Nice.
I would have loved to live there, but we decided against it, and there was one thing that immediately changed our mind about this place.
The deal breaker.
Huge deal breaker was when we left. and we were driving into Portland to get to our Airbnb. From the island all the way into downtown Portland, our drive was okay. But the other side, and this was maybe 3 or 4 in the afternoon, the other side, the traffic leaving Portland at rush hour, it was bumper to bumper. I think it was 3 lanes of traffic, pretty much stopped. It was just at a crawl if it wasn't stopped, all the way in for miles and miles, and huge deal breaker. I would never, one thing we discovered is there was a great restaurant. I'll see if I can link it below in case you're interested in, but it was on the water, a little short drive from that apartment building. And what we decided is, let's remember this place is here and let's come up and eat at this restaurant to enjoy the scenery, but we're not going to live here because
we're going to have to walk across the top of cars to get back.
Right. It was really, really bad traffic. All right, the next place we looked was in Tigard.
Yes.
And our favorite place there was called Oak Street Lofts. And it was, again, exactly what we were looking for. It was this modern building. Now, the apartments there were smaller. The square footage was smaller. But it had the same kind of interior, carpeted hallways. It was beautiful. The mailroom was inside. Like, you'd had the parking garage attached. You didn't have to go outside for anything and be exposed to the weather. They did not have a dog area. They were pet friendly, but they didn't have like a dog run or a park or anything like that. When we were there and we visited, what I thought was strange immediately was the neighborhood that it was in, because it was a typical Portland neighborhood with older homes and lots of greenery. But then all of a sudden there's this 5 or 6 story modern building that's painted like white and turquoise, just sticking up like a sore thumb. It was really out of place. As nice as it was, that was strange. That wasn't a deal breaker, it was just a little weird. But then we went back the next day or a few days later. We happened to be in the same neighborhood and we came across this main street. We were trying to get to a highway and we ran into the same thing with traffic, and this wasn't even a highway yet. This was just a main street.
Yeah.
And it was just stopped traffic, and so that was the deal breaker there for us.
It's not that we're not used to traffic. There's going to be awful traffic in Houston, but it's just tied to where we needed to be, the commutes. It just wasn't working, and that became a deal breaker several times was the traffic flow.
So the next day we went down to West Linn, which is south of Portland.
Yeah.
So it's like West Linn, Lake Oswego, Portland, Lake Oswego, and then West Linn. That commute is a little farther than I wanted to do, but we had been up there over Thanksgiving last year, and we happened to cross this place. We were really impressed because they had attached garages. They also had, by the way, a lot of the apartment buildings up there, they'll have uncovered parking, they'll have carport parking, and they'll have private garages, and you can pay different amounts for depending on what it is. And a lot of them will have all 3 of those options. So this place had garages that are attached to some of the units, like they'd have multi-level condos with a garage on the bottom. And some of them were 2-car garages, and we have 2 cars.
We do.
I thought that was really cool, and I hadn't seen that anywhere else, and we still hadn't seen it anywhere else. We definitely wanted to go back and visit. We loved that place for the most part. It was in a beautiful neighborhood. They had a grocery store right across the street. When we left and we got in the car to talk about what we had just seen when we toured the apartments, Paul was like,
I'm ready, let's do it.
Right.
I'm there.
And I was like, I hate it.
This happens a lot between us.
Yeah. So for me, the commute was an issue. I knew it would be. But more than that, I found the interiors of their apartments to be dated. They were starting to upgrade some of those, but I didn't like the upgrades either. It still felt dated. That was just something I wasn't willing to do. And that's also where we discovered that it is very common in that part of the country to not have air conditioning.
Oh, that.
Oh, that, yeah. And for us here in Houston, that's just a given. Everybody has air conditioning. Now, I've lived in New York City before, and not everybody has air conditioning, so I shouldn't have been too surprised, but I was. As we were walking around this property, I was looking up and noticing a lot of people had window units or they had just a box fan in their windowsill. That was a bit of a red flag for me. You know, I grew up with a window unit in the house that we lived in, and I didn't find it to be very efficient.
They break down, they can be problematic, and then, you know, it's a window unit.
They only pretty much cool one room, not the
Right.
whole house. You know, I'd rather not have that. So that was that. we saw that place, had some really cool things about it, but some deal breakers for me. We also that day went to Lake Oswego, and this is where we found the apartment that we're going to be living in. I will talk more about that in a minute, but before I do, I'll tell you about the other place that we went. So we found our place, and we talked about it that night, and we were like, this is it, but there are still several places we haven't seen that we wanted to see, so let's go look. So the next day, we went out to Orenco Station, which is in Hillsboro. Now that is out west of Portland. I already knew from looking at maps that the commute was going to be too far, but I also knew from looking at floor plans and photos that this neighborhood in particular, which is a planned community, had new buildings, or fairly new, and it had the floor plans we were looking for with the square footage and the big closets and the price range and all that. So we thought, let's go out and look. Maybe it's going to be so amazing that the commute is worth it, or maybe the commute won't be so bad. Now, it was a pretty big highway getting out there, but I still think, we went in the morning, so we didn't see what the traffic was like. I still think the traffic would have been pretty bad. It was really far. That was the farthest place, I think, that we looked.
Yeah, and you put that together with the higher price of gas and little things like that, it adds up to a, you know, on the minus column.
Yeah, gas was about double there what it is here. Right now it's about $3 here, and it was close to $6 up there. So we drove out to Hillsboro, realized how really incredibly far it was. And I've heard lots of good things about Hillsboro. You know, we thought it would be worth it, but we didn't even bother looking at any apartments because it was so far. It was a beautiful neighborhood, but it was also just way too suburban for us. We like, or at least I do, I like old growth trees, which you don't find in the suburbs so much because those are newer developments. I think the big thing for me is it didn't feel like what we have in our heads of our idea of Oregon.
Right.
Right?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It just didn't fit that bill, and there were other places that did.
Like the place we ended up in Lake Oswego. All right, so let's tell you about the place that we actually found and that we signed a lease on. First impressions going to this, and by the way, I found out about this place not through my research, but through one of the Oregon Facebook groups that I've been part of. Someone happened to mention a couple of apartment buildings in Lake Oswego, and this was one I hadn't found yet. Boy, am I glad I came across that. So first impressions driving up to this place. It's huge. I had already looked at it on the Google Maps, and I knew that it was a pretty massive property. It's on about 30 acres, maybe?
Something like that.
It's enormous, and there are lots of buildings. First impression driving up was that it looked old and not well taken care of. And I saw some rotting wood on the buildings and moldy balconies. This was the place that I had been the most excited to visit because I felt like this was going to be the place, and it turned out to be.
There's always that first impression. You know, you know what you think it's going to be like, and then you get there and there's things that are different.
But as we pulled into the driveway and up to the leasing office, and we turn around and we're looking, the front of the community there, they had construction workers there, and they were fixing up the roofs, and they were putting new boards on things to replace rotting wood. And so we saw that they were working on it and they were fixing it up. And we talked to the leasing agents about it, and they said, yeah, they had just started to do that, but they're going to be going through the whole property to fix it up and then repainting once it was done. So that answered my first concern right there.
Yeah, it was new management, relatively new management. They had taken over during the year just before we got there, and they were very vocal about wanting to renovate things. It's going to take a while.
So of the 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartments or floor plans that they only had 2 available for us to look at. So we looked at both of those, one of which was the first apartment they had completely renovated the interior on. And it was really nice. I liked that a lot. The one thing I didn't like about it was that they had gold finishings instead of like nickel or silver toned. And only because, what's wrong with you?
I'll tell you in a minute.
It looked nice, but I don't have any gold stuff because all of our hardware has been silver, and it's easier to find stuff that has silver. Like the things on my desk over there are silver, and I would have to throw everything away and buy all gold stuff. So
Look, I'm old school, and I call myself Mr. Practical. And when we go into a place and Autumn is saying, well, you know, they have gold hardware and it's not silver, or it's silver and it's not gold, or the cabinets are painted this color, they're dark or they're light, I could care less. You know, I just want the doors to open. I want the handles to work. I don't care what color they are. And again, that maybe it's just being in the military at one time and just the way that I was raised. Male, female, I don't know. But this happens all the time with us. Is, you know, she'll be obsessing about something, some particular thing, and I'm just saying, I don't care. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened here.
Yeah, for sure. The other bad thing about now, there was something cool about that apartment is it had a loft, but that also meant the bad thing that we were trying to avoid was that it was on an upper floor, because they have a lot of floor plans that have lofts, but they're all on upper floors so that they can break into the roof area, I guess.
Yeah.
And that means, and this is an older building if you haven't figured that out, so there are no elevators and all that. That means we're climbing stairs with the dogs, mm-hmm. and that's not something we want to do, particularly since it rains a lot in Oregon, and Barron does not like rain, and he doesn't like stepping in puddles, and so it would be a fight. It would be a battle, a war every time we'd try to take him outside, up and down stairs. He's not going to want to go. So what we ended up with was the other of the two apartments that we saw, which is at ground level. And one of the things we both really loved about that particular unit is that it has a porch off the living room that's at ground level, and outside there's this grassy area. You know, we're not going to let the dogs off the leash out there because it's a communal space, but we can let them out the door on leashes and just stand on our porch while they do their business, and we don't have to fight with them. So that's going to be so much more convenient than having to take them up and down stairs, or even in elevators and going to the dog run and all those things.
That's a huge thing for us. Anyone who has dogs in a community where you have to have them on leashes and such, it was really a big thing for us to be able to just open a sliding door and let those dogs out.
I think one of the things that I am most excited about for this particular apartment is that porch, for that reason, but also we've lived in 3 different apartments together, and the first 2 had balconies. And we enjoyed them, but we also found ultimately we didn't use them all that much. And so this apartment that we're in now, it doesn't have a balcony, and that wasn't a deal breaker for us. But we have found since being here that we've missed having a balcony and a private outdoor space to sit and look at the weather or whatever. So I'm excited to have that space again, that little private outdoor space, not only to let the dogs out, but also we want to get a little fire pit where we can sit out there, and it'll be cooler weather, so a fire pit would actually be a good idea, not like here in Houston. And for the first time in all the years we've lived together, we're going to get a grill, and Paul is going to grill dinner for us every night. He's promised to do that.
Wait just a minute. No, seriously. I grew up in Houston with barbecue smokers, and this apartment complex does allow you to have the grills outside as long as they're not wood grills. They have to be gas. But that's great because when you think about all the things that you can grill outside as opposed to inside in an apartment where you might have something smoky and it sets off the fire alarm and all that. So now we can just go outside, grill things on top of something like you're supposed to. And I mean, I'm just thinking of the plethora of things that we can throw on that grill.
I already have a list going.
I bet you do.
Also, the kitchen's a little smaller in this unit, so it'll be helpful to have that outdoor cooking space. Yeah. And apparently, Oregon, Lake Oswego in particular, are pretty safe areas in general and compared to other things. Like here in Houston, everything is fenced and locked. Here we found properties were not gated. Apartment buildings here almost always have a gate around them, so you have to have an access code or a key or something to get in. Here you just walk onto the properties. And I found that everywhere. I don't remember anywhere that had a gate.
I don't either. I don't.
Yeah. So that was interesting. So I'm guessing it's safer, or maybe it's just an older property thing. But even the newer properties didn't have gates.
That's right.
We'll find out.
We will.
Another thing we loved about this property is the neighborhood. First of all, it's in Lake Oswego, which is its own city south of Portland. That's a beautiful city. It's a pretty wealthy city. You have lots of $1 million homes and multi-million-dollar mansions and, private, what do they call those? Country clubs and golf course and all that stuff. And there is a lake there. For the most part, my understanding is the people that have access to the lake are only the people who live on the lake, with a few exceptions. So we can't, just go enjoy it or hire a boat or something, as far as I know right now. Not only that, but it's a really beautiful neighborhood. The streets around us are just green. They're packed with old growth greenery, and it's such a beautiful drive. You don't feel like you're that close to Portland. It feels like you're out in the country, and it's just gorgeous. And the property too, that grassy area has all kinds of trees around it. I love it.
Walking paths, miles of walking paths, and we're looking forward to that, with the dogs and ourselves. Combine that with the mild weather, we're really looking forward to that.
And in addition to the walking paths, we have a state park.
I know, it's ridiculous.
Almost walking distance from us. It's very close to where we're going to be living. State park.
I was telling somebody here, I said, well, you pull out of our property and you think you're in a state park. Oh, wait, you are.
Right. Yeah, that's really cool. And they have lots of trails where we can take the dogs. And I got a backpack. It hasn't arrived yet, but I got a backpack for Vincent that has a perch in it. It's made for birds, and so she can come with us on walks and to the ocean and all those things.
Those of you that don't know, Vincent is the African gray parrot.
Grocery stores, the nearness of a grocery store, the proximity, that would be the proper word. So there's a fancy grocery store called New Seasons. It's like an organic place that we visited and loved. And it's only about 3 minutes from where we'll be. And then there are lots of other grocery stores in the area to choose from, too, that aren't too far. There's also not the country club, but there's another club for our neighborhood that, I don't know exactly what it's called.
I don't remember.
Community center, whatever they call it. But it's basically a fitness center, and they have a place where you can rent the venue for different things, like a hall. They have pools and weight rooms and yoga classes and all that stuff. Even though we'll be in an apartment and not homeowners in that area, we get free membership to this place. Now, our apartment building has a fitness center. It has an indoor heated pool. Thank you. That was something I was looking forward to, and a hot tub. So I don't know how often we'll be going over there, but I love that we have access to it.
Well, for me, it just probably depends on the type of equipment they have. I do use the gym, and I use all of these things, all of the equipment, and I'll find out what they have over there that we may not have at the apartment complex.
Another great thing about this place is that of all the places that we looked, this one is the closest to downtown Portland, so it has the shortest commute. And based on what we saw when we were there, the traffic shouldn't be too bad either. It looks like a lot of the places you have to take this one main highway to get into downtown, but it looks like with this place there are lots of different routes that you could take, so if the highway is too backed up or there's an accident or whatever it is, you can go another route.
And a lot of that commute is just beautiful woodland.
Yeah, and some of it's along the Willamette River. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Hello.
Yeah. One more thing I forgot to write on our list here that we've been reading from is the property in the city of Portland is pretty hilly. The way that our particular unit is set up, I mentioned that it's on ground level, so there's no stairs to get to our apartment, and then our porch is on ground level. Well, my room, that will be my new filming space, is at the opposite end of the apartment. The building is on a hill that slopes down. So my room has a balcony, not a porch, but a balcony that is a full story off of the ground. So we get a ground level porch and an elevated balcony in the same unit, which is pretty cool. There are some things that we don't love about this apartment, so let's talk about those. First is we decided to get a carport instead of a garage. We had always been talking about getting a garage to keep the cars safer, but we're going to try the carports first and see how that goes.
Well, we really don't have much choice. There are garages available for rent, but they're limited.
Yeah, there are fewer garages than carports,
Right.
by far. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm just thinking with the garage, they're fairly narrow, so I feel like it's going to be hard to get in and out and maybe more trouble than it's worth. So because of that, and because this is an older building and it doesn't have an attached parking garage, we will be walking in the weather, the rain and the cold, to get to and from the cars. Not looking forward to that, but it's a really, really common thing up there. It's hard to get around it unless you're in a brand new building. That was one compromise that we made. Another I already mentioned is the kitchen is kind of small. The kitchen we have now is pretty big and spacious.
Yes.
We have a lot of counter space. We're cutting way back, but I think it's still gonna work.
We'll make it work.
Yeah, well, we'll have to, but we're going to buy, it has a little dining room attached to the kitchen, which is where Vincent is going to be because it's got corner windows, so I'm going to put her big cage in the corner there so she can see out. But there's also space where we're going to put some giant cabinets that we'll use as pantries because there's not as much storage space in this apartment as we're used to. Speaking of the closets, this was heartbreaking. They're small. They're not walk-ins. They're just reach-in closets. They're at least double doors. They're sliding doors. And Paul has very generously taken the smaller of the two rooms. So if you don't know this, the way that we do our apartments is we use the living room as the bedroom. We put the bed in there with the TV and everything. And then the two bedrooms are our offices. So he has one, I have one. I need more space because of all my equipment and all my bags and everything that I do for this channel. So he's allowed me to take the larger space, which also happens to have a larger closet. He has one reach-in closet, I have two that are across from each other. Still not much space at all. And that's the main reason that I had so much available in the vlog sale and was downsizing so much on my bag collection because I won't have a place to put it. I'm going to have to buy some more cabinets to put things in. Yeah, I just really had to cut back there.
You don't mind if I just hang big nets from the ceiling and put stuff in there, do you?
Nets, as long as it's in your room, yes. That reminds me, there was a weird thing that we found about the apartment that I've never seen before is the living room. Yeah, the living room and the two bedrooms have no overhead lighting. Like no lighting.
None.
The kitchen and dining room have lights. I think the hallway has a light, yeah. But the rooms don't have lights.
Crazy.
It's so strange. So we're going to be buying lamps.
Floor lamps and all kinds of lamps.
Yeah. One small thing is the refrigerator doesn't have an ice maker. We're a little bummed about that, but we've
They're
already
spoiled.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, but we haven't had to use ice trays in I don't know how long.
It's been a while.
And so now we have ice trays, but that's not a big deal. And the other big disappointment is that the washer and dryer, we do a lot of laundry because of the animals and bedding and, just all the things. This unit has a stacked washer dryer, which isn't that big a deal, except the capacity is really small. It's at least half the size of what we're used to, if not less than that.
When I first looked into the washing machine, I didn't know if it was a washing machine or just maybe an ice maker. I mean, an ice cream maker. It's about that small.
It's really small.
We'll manage. I guess we can always put a clothesline in that nice backyard, and
Right.
be like the 1950s.
Yeah. Two things that we forgot to say, we're coming back to add this to the video now. One, we didn't tell you the square footage of the new apartment. So the place we're in right now is about 1,500 square feet. And we were looking for something that was ideally above 1,000 at the very least. The apartment we ended up with is actually under 1,000. It's 934, I think. So it's kind of significantly under 1,000, but it still feels fairly spacious. I think it'll be enough room for us. It's going to be a little tight in places, but overall it feels like it's going to work.
And I think we've been a little bit spoiled with it.
Oh, we've totally been spoiled with this apartment.
We have here.
We don't need as much space as we have now. The other thing was I said that we were expecting to pay more and get less. Well, we are getting less in some places, but we're getting bonuses in other places. But we are actually going to end up saving money on this apartment. We're paying $2,200 a month right now, like I said. This new apartment is below $2,000, so we're saving a few $100s a month on this apartment, which is very cool. And that's all we wanted to add. So that's all about our experience finding an apartment in Oregon and the one that we found, and we're super excited about it. At the time we're filming this, we're moving in 2 weeks. We leave 2 weeks from tomorrow. I am confident that we'll be able to do it. Paul is less so.
We'll see.
It'll happen.
Maybe we'll have a video about that.
Yeah, there will be. I'll be vlogging the trip. Yeah, we're gonna ship my car and we'll all be in Paul's car with the animals and everything. And we're taking about 10 days to get up there because we're stopping in a few places and doing short drives along the way, and
Staying with friends.
Yeah, and we'll have some adventures to share.
Cool.
All right, that's the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Do appreciate it. Hope to see you back here next time, and I hope you have a fabulous day. Bye.
Bye-bye.